Hey guys, welcome back. So recently we looked at the sets of Spartan armor that are designed both directly and also indirectly to counter the Flood. So today I figured that we'd look at the weapons that we would usually expect to see being used alongside these counter-Flood armor sets. Weapons that are designed, once again, both directly and also indirectly to counter the Flood. But before we start, I just gotta say a massive thank you for 200,000 subscribers. That number on its own is absolutely mind-blowing, but to say that we reached it during the biggest content drought that Halo has ever had is honestly just insane. Thank you so much, guys. I cannot put it into words how thankful I am. The official iconic Hidden Xperia merch, the shirts, will be dropping very, very soon. The final design was just finished like 2 days ago, and I gotta say, it looks pretty fucking good. So thank you so much again, fellas. I really do appreciate it. And let's get on with the show. Alrighty, let's begin with the UNSC weapons, starting with humanity's most iconic counter-Flood weapon, the shotgun. Shotguns have been one of the most commonly used weapons against all forms of zombie in countless different movie and gaming universes, dating all the way back to the 60s, and the Flood are no exception to this. What makes the shotgun so effective is the velocity, power, and spread of the pellets that are ejected when the weapon is fired. Each shell that is loaded into the shotgun contains, on average, around 15 individual pellets that are fired from the barrel in a wide spread. At long range, this makes the gun practically fucking useless, but at close range, when all of the pellets hit their target, they tear directly through the rotten biomass of the Flood with ease, rendering a combat form's body damaged beyond use, often even killing the infection form inside the chest at the same time, and destroying other forms like pure forms and carrier forms without issue. Now, the rest of the useful human weapons all share one important trait: their use of excessive heat. Now, the flamethrower is obviously the most obvious choice in this category because, I mean, well, it goes without saying, it literally spews fire. It works by igniting a stream of a volatile semi-liquid fuel, just like a standard flamethrower works in real life, and the fire that it emits burns through the rotten flesh of the Flood form. For pure forms, the fire burns their biomass and basically cooks them to death, leaving a lovely smell. And in the case of a combat form, it either melts the flesh in its entirety, destroying the host body, or it damages it enough to kill the infection form inside and then weaken the body. However, given that it can sometimes take quite a while for living combat forms to burn to death, the best use, arguably, for the flamethrower is to burn the bodies of potential hosts, whether they're dead combat forms or just dead bodies that are yet to be infected. Destroying them with fire is the only way to ensure that they don't come back again and again and again and again. The Spartan laser is also extremely effective against the Flood for similar reasons. The powerful laser beam that's emitted when it's fired can burn right through nanocomposites, hardened steel, and also many other forms of reinforced metal, so the rotting flesh of the Flood is no problem for this bad boy. Honestly though, I could see Spartan lasers not really being used that often against the Flood because they're big, they're heavy, they take a while to charge up and fire, and they're clearly not meant to be used against infantry. Instead, I could see them being used really effectively against Flood hives. Now, we saw in Halo Wars that Anders Sparrowhawks, the sort of modified Hornets, had modified Spartan lasers mounted on their nose that had a really short overheat period, much shorter than the regular laser, which would be really, really useful in large numbers when dealing with Flood hives, large-scale Flood outbreaks, or maybe even grave mines. And finally, for the UNSC weapons, I want to cover pretty much any form of explosive, from frag grenades to spankers to grenade launchers. Pretty much anything explosive is super useful in combating the Flood, again for the most obvious of reasons. The heat that's emitted from the explosion is enough to completely destroy combat forms, carrier forms, and even pure forms. Obviously, some explosives are more effective than others, and a rocket is always going to do more damage against a tank form than a regular grenade, but all explosions are effective for the same reason. This is very likely why the UNSC use WMDs if a Spartan is infected by the Flood. Not even an infection form that's burrowed inside a set of super strong Mjolnir could withstand the heat of a nuclear warhead. Okay, so let's move on to the Covenant weapons that are useful against the Parasite. Now, given that the elites and humans are now allies post-war, we can expect that weapons are sometimes shared among the factions. I mean, we've already seen it with Olympia Vale, so I can assume that Spartan containment fire teams often use some of these weapons when they go on operations. So the first, and again, the most obvious, is the Energy Sword. The magnetic field generators that are located in the hilt of the weapon emit two extremely sharp blades of superheated plasma that can cut through practically any material. Blood biomass most... definitely included. Despite it only being useful in immediately short range, the Energy Sword is always superior to the shotgun in that range because, quite obviously, you don't need to reload it. If a Spartan was surrounded by the Flood, all he'd have to do is just keep swinging and swinging the sword, and given how easily it cuts through rotten flesh, its battery also depletes a lot slower, so all in all, I would honestly say the sword is the most effective weapon to use against the Flood, bar none, and given the current human-elite relations, it wouldn't shock me if Spartan Flood containment fire teams took them on missions. Please, 343, if you ever make an animated short or a small movie about these teams, give one of them a sword. It's just too perfect. Other forms of plasma-based weaponry are also extremely effective. The reason is similar to heat-based weapons. The super hot plasma fired from plasma rifles and plasma pistols, in particular, causes immense third-degree burns to humans, and has been known to even burn straight through unshielded Mjolnir armor. So with that in mind, just imagine what it would do to Flood biomass. Despite them really only ever being useful against the Flood in Halo Combat Evolved, the bolts of plasma that are fired by these weapons would realistically, in universe, melt directly through Flood form with ease. With this in mind, if the Flood do come back in Halo Infinite, then I really hope that plasma weapons are as canonically effective against them as they should be. Now, there's a group of weapons that I actually think fall under the radar quite often that would actually be really useful in certain situations, and these are the Brute weapons, notably the Brute Shot and the Spiker. Now, all these weapons are outfitted with extremely sharp blades that make them effective in close quarters, and as shown by Halo 2 and also Halo 3, this also applies to the Flood. The Brute Shot's massive curved blade underneath it can cut straight through a combat form with ease, and it does significant damage to pure forms as well. Maybe it's the extremely strong tungsten carbide that the blades are made from, the same material as armor-piercing rounds, or maybe it's something else entirely, but either way, these blades would actually be extremely useful against the Flood in close quarters combat, on the off chance that an empty sword wasn't available, of course. And finally for the Covenant, we yet another Brute invention, the Firebomb Grenade. This bad boy does exactly what it says on the tin. It's essentially a Molotov cocktail, but a lot more lethal. You throw it at a target, and the casing converts to a liquid, burning at roughly 2,200 degrees centigrade, applying to a roughly 15-foot radius. Now, for painstakingly obvious reasons, these grenades are super effective against the Flood, especially large hordes of them, given how big its fire radius is. And so, the final collection of weapons are Forerunner weapons, which, as you can imagine, are far more effective at countering the Flood than any other form of weaponry. The Sentinel Beam, the first of them, was designed as the primary weapon of the Aggressor Sentinels, which were created to guard Forerunner facilities, notably from the Flood. They were designed purely to counter the Flood, and thus, so was their weapon. The Sentinel Beam fires a continuous beam of superheated gold or blue particles, which directly cut through flesh, bone, and metal. Really, not much needs to be said about the beam. It was built for one purpose and one purpose only: destroying the parasite and all possible hosts for it. And at that, does a pretty damn good job. And finally, of course, we have the Promethean weapons: the light rifle, the suppressor, the scattershot, etc, etc. Most of these weapons were created before the Forerunners faced the Flood, but there's a reason they were given to the Promethean Knights, soldiers that were literally created to save the Forerunners from the Flood. Their ability to disintegrate their targets made them extremely useful at both killing the Flood and also entirely destroying their bodies, which prevented reanimation and made larger forces much easier to fight. Each individual Promethean weapon was also designed for different Flood encounters and also for different enemy types, making them a lot more specialized from their human and Covenant counterparts. The Dying Star variant of the light rifle that fires the adhesive explosives was designed to be used against the tougher Flood pure forms. The suppressor's efficiency in close range made them the most favoured tool for boarding and recapturing Flood-controlled ships. The scattershot was created and used by Forerunner builder security forces that were helping to evacuate planets under assault by the Flood, and the Loathsome Thing variant with the longer magazine saw use destroying Flood from 100,000 different hives. The incineration cannon was used to strategically purge infected sites, with Prometheans favouring the cannon when conducting operations believed to contain either a Flood hive or a Gravemind. The River of Light variant was the culmination of anti-Flood technological improvements that ultimately, sadly, proved useless. And finally, we have arguably the most interesting of all of the Promethean weapons, the Binary Rifle. It was designed as a counter-Flood sniper rifle and was used by warrior servants to assassinate emerging key mines, likely including things like the Juggernaut, and later on during the war, it became a necessary tool in combating the ever-growing number of pure forms. So, they are all of the weapons most useful against the Flood, both directly and also indirectly designed to counter the ever-spreading parasite. Now, if there's ever a Flood outbreak on our precious planet Earth, you know exactly what to use to defend her. Alrighty, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to give a big thank you to Ardent, Tomahawk, Evan, Momo, Shikata, Mjolnir, Matthew, Pierre, Tony, Jim, Zach, Theo, Michael, Jack Madden, Eric Brown, Sam Grafton, Brian98, Hayden Woods, Gareth Davies, and Matthew Brown for supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and thank you again insurmountably for 200,000 subs. That is such a crazy number. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.
PayPal is accepted by over 19 million online stores, including over 90,000 for gaming. So you can find the key to victory. PayPal, accepted on over 19 million sites, including your favorites for gaming.
SCP-1730. What happened to Site-13? For the greater good is a phrase that has been used in various forms throughout history to justify certain actions that would normally be considered abhorrent. The SCP Foundation in general, of course, operates largely on this principle throughout most of their work, but often is the case where the Foundation is ultimately correct in their choice of actions. SCP-1730 is a grand, detailed report of a situation where the Foundation was profoundly, terribly wrong. SCP-1730 is easily among the lengthiest articles on the SCP Wiki, and although the actual description of the SCP is fairly short, the numerous logs, recovered materials, and interviews make this an epic report. In this video, I'll attempt to summarize and explain 1730 as best as I can, but keep in mind that I'll be cutting out quite a bit of atmospheric details along the way. SCP-1730 ultimately both asks and answers the question of what exactly happened to Site-13. And we see immediately that 1730 is listed as neutralized, meaning that it's either been destroyed, its anomalous properties have been removed, or it is no longer a part of our existence. 1730 itself is a large complex of structures, with identifying markers showing that it was known as the SCP Foundation's Site-13. Foundation records, however, show that Site-13 was originally planned to be built, but the plans were scrapped. The site was going to be built in Alaska, which seems to be where 1730 is from, which makes it stranger that it is located in Texas. The site seems long abandoned, is in a severe state of disrepair, and there are a number of fuel leaks and fires throughout the facility due to the power generator continuing to operate in a damaged state. Despite this, there is believed to be human survivors somewhere in the lower parts of the facility, as messages have been found on walls throughout the site, including the words danger, bleed, and the phrase, "What happened to Site-13?" The Foundation has established a simple containment procedure due to the site's remote location, but ultimately they decided to send in some teams to properly explore it. Our first piece of major info comes from a recovered log from a recovery team working for Site-13. They were apparently sent to retrieve and recontain an anomaly. The log describes the anomaly crawling into one of the team's mouths, causing blood to leak from every orifice. Afterwards, two anomalies come out of the body, with one drinking up all the blood, and the other going back into the dead body, reanimating it. The remainder of the team puts down their reanimated squad mate, but the writer of the log admits that they don't have much longer, says something that was expunged from the record, and states it's just a matter of time before it starts. Interestingly, the expunged section was removed because it was marked as a cognitohazard, something that is dangerous for some reason to an individual when recorded with any of the 5 senses, in this case, likely sight. The log describes the team using C4 explosives to blow up the wall, rendering something likely the cognitohazard, but says it doesn't matter because Jones already went quiet like the others, and they shoved him down an elevator. Finally, it mentions how someone started with pressure, which we'll learn about later. The next piece of info is an automated message describing the states of the various systems of Site-13. We see that it was sent minutes before an electrical disturbance and an explosion in the power relay, and shows that nearly every system is offline or compromised, including the Keter-class containment systems. Additionally, the Euclid-class containment systems and the reactor are both in critical status. Finally, we're brought into the present, with the exploration log transcript for the first team sent into Site-13 by the Foundation. The team is the D-12 Mobile Task Force, known as the Mudslingers, and consists of 6 members, including the captain. They enter through the unlocked front doors, switch on their lights due to the darkness, and immediately find messages written on the walls, including the ominous phrase, "Don't look at the walls." They find a service elevator that's still powered, and descend to the 3rd basement level. The team splits up to search the floor, finding that the rooms are filthy, due to being covered in some sort of metallic-smelling sludge. They see a makeshift barricade next to a door, and they also find a few bodies, half submerged in the sludge. A snake-like creature emerged from one of the bodies' mouths, which they immediately terminated, and discovered that the bodies were in fact hollow. The team agrees to return to the elevator, only to find the layout of the floor has changed, meaning they are either hallucinating or the building is physically changing. They head down a hallway, which seems to be much longer than the building's schematics show, and break down a door into an office. They find a naked human, with fire seemingly burning out of its ears. An intense white light, the sound of searing meat, and static from the team's microphones is all Site Command receives for over a minute, until they also hear the sound of slithering, a cry, and choking sounds. Other strange sounds come through the microphone until the other two members who had split away from the group finally respond. They are currently waiting near the elevator and thought their radios had stopped working, until suddenly their camera feeds show them in a different room, with one of them hanging upside down, facing each other, and both are completely stark white. Blood from their mouth, nostrils, and eyes cover their faces, and a large object moves in the background, accompanied by the sound of slithering from multiple directions. One of the team members opens their eyes, and the video and audio feeds cut out. This was the last Site Command heard from the Mudslingers. Clearly, exploration of the main structure was going to prove to be quite dangerous, so until the Foundation could set up a more prepared second attempt, they decided to send in a small team to the power station to assess the damage. MTF Y-24, known as Gulliver's Travelers, is a three-man team who went to the power station, only to discover the first set of doors inside to be locked and bulletproof. Rather than using explosives, which would risk a collapse, Site Command tries to find someone who would possibly know the clearance code for the door. Despite this site never actually being constructed in this reality, Director Jameson's clearance code from when this site would have been built manages to get the team in. The team examines the power cores, and then releases a micro-drone to provide a closer look, revealing that 7 of the 12 cores are damaged beyond repair, 3 are not functioning at full power, and 2 are, although one of those is currently superheated. The team finds more of the sludge that the other team encountered, and then sees 10 stark white bodies bound to the superheated core with wire. Underneath them, seemingly written in blood, are the words, "What happened to Site-13?" The team descends a stairwell, finding a door at the bottom that has been pried open, and discover a disgusting smell before their camera feeds begin to distort. The audio feed then cuts out completely, and Site Command only receives intermittent communications for 15 minutes, during which the team seems to be encountering more of the dead humans covered in sludge. Finally, it seems as if they encounter one that appears to be alive, before Site Command totally loses contact with the team. The recovered sludge from the micro-drone appears to be blood and power core residue mixed with an unknown biological matter. 1 week later, the team's video feed comes back online for 13 seconds, during which it shows a number of humans standing and looking down at a table. The Foundation still needed more time to prepare for the next exploration team, and so decided to send in an unmanned drone to hopefully investigate the lower floors of the main complex. The drone was launched through the same door that the first team entered, and began to descend in the elevator towards the lowest basement floor. After descending 7 floors, a power failure causes the elevator to stop, and so the drone forces the doors open, and descends manually to the 8th basement floor, a Euclid containment wing. After inspecting a number of rooms, the drone sees a vaguely humanoid entity standing near the end of the hallway. The drone follows the entity, as it doesn't seem to notice it, and watches as it picks up some of the sludge on the floor, and marks a nearby wall. The symbols on the wall are later revealed to be cognitohazards, which the drone takes pictures of, and continues to follow the entity, which curiously leaves behind no footprints in the sludge. The drone enters the actual containment area, finding a cell containing a human form covered in sludge, with sparks emanating from its fingertips. A sign on the doorway states that Entity 324 is scheduled for termination in December of 1975. The drone finds another cell that had been locked shut. After forcing it open, the drone sees a dead female on the floor, with no sludge in the room. An identification badge on the corpse contains the name Jack Bright. Dr. Bright is a notable individual in the SCP universe, capable of immortality through jumping into different bodies due to the use of SCP-963. The drone descends to the next floor, finding a working computer terminal, which is running an older version of the SCP Foundation operating system. The drone begins to transmit what files it can access back to Command, but soon they lose contact with the drone. It's at this point that the cognitohazard that Site Command had viewed earlier triggered. causing affected individuals to go silent and begin to burn from their ears. Any audible sound after this would trigger a silent explosion, shaking Site Command and destroying most of their communication equipment. The drone finished transmitting files, but the drone itself was never recovered. I'll skip ahead for a moment to discuss the various files that the drone transmitted back. First, a correspondence from an engineer to the site's chief biologist and assistant director of anomalous biology, Dr. Hadley. Hadley was apparently working with the mysterious Thresher device, and the engineer informed her that although the reactors could surge to power the device, the reactors would likely not survive the process. The engineer goes on to say that the Thresher device is still wildly unstable, and utilization of it would likely destabilize local reality. Another correspondence from an individual who is both on the SCP Foundation's Ethics Committee and the head of the Global Occult Coalition's Ethics Board tells Dr. Hadley that she is not permitted to transfer out of Site-13. Additionally, Dr. Hadley seems to have an issue with Site-13's director and the protocol of terminating humanoid SCPs. The individual informs her that these anomalies are not considered human beings, and are not entitled to any of the rights that human beings are. Next, a test log shows a number of reality benders being exposed to dangerous conditions while wearing inhibitor devices, to see if they can change reality to save themselves. Exposure to extremely cold and hot temperatures as well as electricity caused the reality benders to die without them stopping it, while water submersion seems to interfere with the inhibitor causing unknown results. As a side note, the administrator of the test is listed as a doctor with only a number identification, not a name, in contrast to how the SCP Foundation usually does things. A message from one engineer to another discusses a buildup of toxic waste in the pit beneath the reactors. The waste is supposed to be piped off-site, but keeps getting built up, which will likely lead to a very serious issue. A note from Director Emerson states that the entire humanoid wing of the facility is to be promptly terminated by electrocution and incineration. It's this process that is seemingly causing the buildup of waste. Another message from an engineer to Dr. Hadley says that he altered termination records for a leech boy that was taken down to the pit. Since the output of the pit is still blocked up, he won't go anywhere. Finally, we get a message from Dr. Hadley to Director Emerson, in which we get a number of new details. The message discusses a containment breach caused by Dr. Hadley, and mentions that Emerson was foolish for thinking that killing the anomalous entities would stop them, as them being living is the least anomalous thing about them. Dr. Hadley goes on to discuss a young boy named Elijah, who subsisted only on blood and could drink it through someone's skin, much like a leech. He had the mental capacity of a toddler, and did not choose to be this way, but Emerson had him incinerated like the rest. Of course, the incineration didn't actually kill Elijah, and him interacting with the bloody sludge caused a highly anomalous process to occur, in which the dead SCPs returned, in a way. In addition to this, of course, the Thresher device was eventually activated, causing the local reality of the site to heavily distort, leading to one highly anomalous facility. The Foundation still needed a more complete understanding of the facility, however, and so another team was sent in to explore its depths. This team, MTF-Z9, called Mole Rats, were specifically experienced in exploring anomalous locations, so they would be best prepared for the reality warping effects inside. The 5-man team entered the main structure, equipped with helmets that would filter out any of the writing on the walls to avoid cognitohazards. They descend the stairs to the 6th basement level and begin to explore the floor, walking past sludge and bodies, when suddenly the floor collapses underneath one of the team members, Z9-4. The fall injures his leg, leaving him immobile, and the rest of the team look for a stairwell to descend. The injured member begins to hear slithering sounds around him, unable to see his surroundings. Gunshots ring out through the facility as one of the members, Z9-3, watching his injured teammate, sees a leech-like creature approaching him. The creature enters Z9-4's mouth and begins sliding down his throat. Z9-3 attempts to shoot the creature, but misses, and asks the captain for permission to shoot Z9-4 to put him out of his misery. He gets no response from the captain, but after Z9-4 lets out a choking plea, he fires his weapon. The floor further collapses, causing Z9-3 to fall and get crushed by debris. 5 minutes later, Z9-4 goes silent. A leech creature comes out of his mouth, and he stands up, picking up his dead teammate's weapon. Site Command received no communication from any of the Mole Rats for the following 3 hours, when suddenly communication from the 3 team members resumes, with them seemingly below the 15th floor. Z9-4's camera feed comes back for a moment, showing a number of humans with flames coming out of their ears, and a massive pit with a large creature in it covered
off to keep your mother. To keep your mother?
Well, off to keep your mother.
hit your mother.
Well, off to
Hit your mother.
well, off to
Hit your mother.
gargoyle is here!
To hit your mother!
I did it! Oh yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Well, off to eat your mother! off to eat your mother. Off to eat your mother.
There's a spy over here!
Well, off to eat your mother!
Medic! Doc, come on, man! Medic! Medic! Need a dispenser here!
Off to eat your mother!
Fire! 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 We got him! We got him! Look at me, Ma! Sweet! Wicked! Incoming!
Well, off to eat your mother! Well, off to eat your mother!
coming! Yeah, gotcha! Yes! Woohoo! I did it!